Hey everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a super common issue that many Jeep owners face. The dreaded P0302 engine fault code. You're driving along, minding your own business, and suddenly that check engine light pops on. You plug in your scanner, and dare eat is P0302. So, what does it actually mean? In simple terms, it means your Jeep's computer has detected a misfire in cylinder number 2. Now, don't panic. A misfire sounds serious, and it can be, but it's often caused by a handful of relatively simple and fixable problems. Essentially, the engine isn't getting the right mix of air and fuel, or the spark isn't happening at the right time in that specific cylinder. This can lead to a rough idle, a noticeable loss of power, poor fuel economy, and sometimes even a shaking or stumbling sensation when you're accelerating. You might also smell unburnt fuel coming from your exhaust. If you're experiencing any of these symptoms along with a code, it's definitely time to investigate. Ignoring it can lead to more severe damage, like ruining your catalytic converter, which is a very expensive repair. So, where do you start looking for the culprit? Let's go through the most common causes, from easiest to hardest to fix. The number one suspect is almost always a bad spark plug. Spark plugs wear out over time, and a fouled, cracked, or worn-out plug in cylinder 2 can't create the strong spark needed for proper combustion. The next logical step is to check the ignition coil, or coil pack, for that cylinder. The coil's job is to send high voltage to the spark plug. If it's failing, you won't get a good spark. These are often the two most likely culprits, and thankfully, they are relatively inexpensive and easy to replace for most DIers. If you've ever replaced the spark plug and ignition coil for cylinder 2 and the code still comes back, it's time to dig a little deeper. The next thing to check is the fuel injector. A clogged or faulty fuel injector can prevent the right amount of fuel from being delivered to the cylinder. You can sometimes test this by listening for a clicking sound from the injector with a mechanic stethoscope or a long screwdriver. A silent injector might be a dead injector. Another potential issue could be a vacuum leak near cylinder 2's intake manifold gasket. A leak introduces unmetered air into the cylinder, which throws off the air-fuel ratio and causes a misfire. You can check for leaks using a smoke machine or by carefully spraying a little bit of brake cleaner around the intake manifold area and listening for a change in the engine as idle. Now, let's talk about the more serious, but less common, possibilities. These are things you'd want to rule out after checking the basics. The problem could be mechanical. This includes things like low compression in cylinder 2, which could be caused by a worn piston ring, a bad valve, or even a damaged cylinder wall. A compression test is the way to diagnose this. You'd remove the spark plug, screw in a compression gauge, and crank the engine. The reading for cylinder 2 should be very close to the readings for the other cylinders. A significant drop in pressure points to an internal engine problem. Another mechanical issue could be a worn camshaft lobe or a bad lifter, which affects how the valves open and close. These are definitely more complex repairs that might require a professional mechanic. So, let's recap the diagnostic process. You get a P0302 code. First, check and likely replace the spark plug for cylinder 2. If that doesn't fix it, swap the ignition coil from cylinder 2 with another cylinder, say cylinder 1. Clear the codes and drive. If the code changes to P0301, you know the coil is bad. If the code stays P0302, then your coil is fine. Next, inspect the fuel injector and check for vacuum leaks. If you're still stuck, it's time for a compression test to check the mechanical health of the engine. By following these steps systematically, you can usually pinpoint the cause of that pesky P0302 code without just throwing parts at the problem. Fixing a P0302 can be a satisfying DIY project that saves you a ton of money at the repair shop. But remember, if you're ever unsure or the problem seems to be beyond a simple part swap, don't hesitate to consult a trusted mechanic. Your safety and your Jeep's health are what matter most. Thanks for watching. I hope this guide helps you get your Jeep running smoothly again. If you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe for more content and hit that notification bell. Drop a comment below if you've ever dealt with this code yourself. See you in the next one.